Welcome back. Well, we are continuing with my Christmas Eve shopping at Bedford. And as I explained in at least one of the previous videos, one of the reasons for shopping on Christmas Eve, basically at the end of the year, is because this is the time when you can expect really good deals. Even people who ordinarily have things right down at rock bottom prices are not only discounting even more, but because they're hoping to cash in on the Christmas shopping trade, they're putting more things out in their booths. And you can get some incredible stuff, as I did the last time I was out. I seem to recall I got something in the range of 25 pieces, and my total bill was just over $100. I think it was like $103. So that's telling you the prices I'm getting for them. This is absolutely thrift store prices. So we'll get right back into it when we come back. Okay, to start off with, I filmed something when I was there that was sort of attached to one of the small video clips I included yesterday, but I looked at it and said, oh, I don't think I'm going to show them this, and then I changed my mind. When I was scrambling through Paul's little tightly packed cubby, one of the things I had to move out of the way was this. And while I am in this cubby here, this is something I had to relocate so I could get into that back shelf. This is an incredible little horn. Looks like it's brass and copper, $5. All I can think of is, boy, what a great steampunk project that would make. But unfortunately, not today. Oh, that is just steampunk wonderland. I think it was $5. If it's still there, I may pick it up and throw it in my project box, because a wonderful old horn like that, there's a project in there somewhere. I have no idea what it could be, but I have absolutely been casting about to do a large-scale, serious steampunk project for the yard. There is a little sort of junk shop down the street from me that has their own version of the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. It's an oil drum and oil hats and whatever, and they've created their own sort of rusty Tin Man, and I do love that. And I think that's where my inspiration is coming from. I think I would like to do something very big, very steampunk for outdoors, but not a project for this time. But I did want to share with you that little piece because, among other things, it gives you some sense of the stuff that you find in places like this. My beloved stove Ezra came from one of Paul's booths after cleaning off, and I don't remember how long it took. Jocelyn and I were just literally pulling stuff off this to see what it was underneath. I think it took us 10 minutes to clean off the stove because all kinds of things, lamps, quilts, everything was on top of this. Well, that's where we found Ezra, that great beauty. This is where I'm finding delicate Nippon chocolate pots too. It's everything. So if you go out to places like this, wear sweatpants and sneakers. Be prepared to climb over stuff. And it doesn't hurt if you have a very tall, long-legged friend to help out. All right. Another piece from Paul's cubbies, and this was in the area where I was finding the chocolate pots. So let's take a look at this. Well, this is also in one of Paul's cubbies. Let's turn this around so you can see. This is a Japanese incense burner, and you would put the incense in here. Obviously, it's cone incense, $3, very good price. It is marked Japan, and it is coming home with me. Well, here's the piece, and I thought you might like to see the piece because I was not holding that camera very still. I didn't have very solid footing. I don't know what the devil I was standing on. It might have been that horn, but I was simply not able to hold anything steady. This is that incense burner. As you can see, when it's turned around properly, it's very clearly a Satsuma piece. Now, I didn't recognize that right away because this is what it looked like when I first saw it. Definitely a Japanese piece. I could see the Satsuma influence, especially on the top portion here. But without this wonderful little figure, which just shrieks, "Oh, look how Satsuma we are," it was hard to tell. Holes in the bottom. You'd put an incense cone in here, light it, pop the top over it, and mind you, a piece like this does not have to be used for incense. You could do just about anything you wanted. Leave it as it is, but clearly designed to be an incense burner. So I wanted you to see it because, as I say, I know that having looked at that film, that was really hard to tell what it was. Also, walking away, and the second floor is largely dominated by Paul's nooks and crannies, which is why you see so much of his stuff. And because he has just this insane amount of interesting low-price stuff, I always try to scramble to the second floor first just to make sure I have first crack at all the goodies. As I was passing by another cabinet, I saw something really interesting. This is not the style of porcelain I usually go for, and I did not buy it, but I thought you really might enjoy taking a look at it. Well, here we have a pair of Bisque figurines. Yes, they need a little cleaning, but if you look at the hands of both figures, we're not missing anything. Nope, they appear to be all there. Lusterware interiors on these bowls. They are marked Paris on the tag. There was a sticker here, and we've got the remnants of it. My suspicion is they were salt cellars or something of the kind, that they would have been placed on the table and salt would have gone into these highly glazed lusterware cups on either side. Very pretty. They have the look of pieces that came out of France in probably the 1920s or perhaps even earlier. $15 is a good price, and I may come back for them. This is an area of porcelain that I really don't deal in much. Consequently, this sticker means nothing to me. So, that's the sort of thing that I would have to do a little research on. My spidey sense tells me that they are worth a lot more than $15. And frankly, if my bag wasn't so full already, I would be inclined to take a chance on them. Really pretty bisque pieces. Things like that were hugely, hugely popular in days past. The 19th century bisque was everything. It's like, oh, we've got bisque, and everybody would say, oh, look, they've got bisque, and it was just, yeah, it was like the Queen coming to dinner. It was just such a big deal. Bisque lost popularity in the 30s and 40s. That was pretty much the end of the heyday of bisque, largely because of inexpensive, interesting, and in fact, in most cases, very nicely made Japanese pieces. Pieces like lusterware, where you got a lot of bang for your buck, and it was very, very tiny bucks involved in the purchase. In the mid-20th century, everybody could have as much porcelain as they wanted. You could go into the poorest of households and there would be beautiful porcelain pieces because these things were so readily available because they were coming in from Asia. So European porcelain like Bisque started to decline in popularity. It's not that there was anything inherently wrong with the pieces, but styles change, fashions change. Looking at those Bisque pieces, you can certainly see that although they would have been right at home in a fancy house before the Second World War, after the Second World War, that they would have seemed dated. They would have looked like grandma's stuff. Styles and tastes change. But nice pieces like that will always find a home. I think those were designed to be salt cellars because of the lusterware interior of those cups. Those cups on either side of the figurines were meant to hold something, either salt or relishes or some sort of food product because of that highly glazed interior. And pieces like that were often sold in huge sets. There would be, little pieces like those two, and then bigger pieces, maybe, the general on horseback or whatever. You could get like massive sets of these things and they would cover your sideboard. And we still see a lot of those. In the 50s, they were replaced with console sets, like a large bowl with a couple of candlesticks next to it. It was a style that is not with us any longer, but did survive right through the 20th century. The next thing I grabbed was, again, from Paul, prowling around in his little cubbies. And okay, we've got a couple more pieces from Paul. $8. Let me get this tag out of the way so you can see the piece. This is a figurine of a Chinese scholar, and he's reading a book. Now, interestingly enough, when I first looked at that, I realized this is a Chinese scholar, but it's not a Chinese piece. And I looked around the bottom, saw nothing, and eventually found the mark here at the bottom. Right under this hole, it says made in Japan. Now, we have something here. I'm not sure if there is something that was supposed to have been there. I really don't know what it is. I don't know if that's going to make it to my Etsy shop. I think that if I simply put some sort of small plug in that hole, perhaps even a dollop of wax, that I could throw an incense stick in there and have a very impressive little incense burner. On the other hand, I don't know. I can't keep everything I buy, so it might end up going into my Etsy shop after all. And then I found this. Here's our price over here, $6.50. Again, Paul. This is a really interesting Japanese teapot. And this, by the way, is how it is I end up being up to my eyeballs in teapots. It's really not my fault. People just keep throwing these gorgeous and interesting teapots in my path. And what am I supposed to do? Just walk away from them? Oh, I don't think so. Those two pieces were side by side. The little Chinese scholar figure, and I am not sure what the original purpose was. I think something might have been broken off the top of that. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's a beautiful piece. But as I mentioned in the film, when I first saw it, I could see it was a Chinese scholar, but I could also see immediately that it was a Japanese version of a Chinese scholar. It just sort of screamed Japan. The little teapot, oh my goodness, that's as cute as you please. And I love the fact that it's such an unusual sort of semicircular shape. That one, I don't know. I could probably stand another teapot. Gee, that green matches my stove. I have to talk myself into listing it and not keeping it, because, you know, you just can't keep everything. The little Chinese scholar, however, after I took a closer look at that little top where I think something's broken, I think if I went in there and cleaned out that broken area, there's some kind of wax or something in there. I looked at it and I think there might have been a stopper. It might have been a bottle of some sort because of that wax around the rim. And in times past, that was how they would seal bottles. They would put wax around the lip, put in a cork or a stopper, or, yeah, and it might not necessarily be a rubber stopper. It might have actually been a porcelain stopper. The wax would seal it. I'm pretty sure if I clean that out and stick a cork in there, I might actually have that available as a bottle if I wanted. Or I'll take my little pokey tool, poke a hole in the cork, and then I could stick incense in it. Who knows? In any event, great piece of a style that I'm really, really fond of. So I'm not sorry for that one at all. And when I was through with that, I went over to take a look at some glassware. We have here a set of swirl glass goblets. That's what they're listed as. $19.99, so $20 for the set of 8. Very heavy. I'm not seeing lines. It's probably sandwich glass instead of pressed glass. Heavy, old, and frankly, you can't go into Walmart and buy a set of 8 glasses for much under $20. So this is absolutely the way to go if you're looking for new glassware. Well, new old glassware. Well, I had said when I was looking at it, I was babbling, saying, is this sandwich or is this pressed? Well, to avoid confusion, one of the things I really want to point out is a lot of the sandwich glass was pressed glass. A lot of it was blown. but a lot of it was pressed. Those pieces were pressed, and I saw that when I looked at the film afterward. I could see the lines in the film. Sandwich glass, and you're probably wondering what I mean when I say that. Sandwich glass refers to a company in Sandwich, Massachusetts. So it has nothing to do with, peanut butter and jelly or anything like that. Or, for those who are a little more clever and probably thinking, well, if it's pressed, maybe sandwich had to do with the way it was put together. Nope. Strictly a town up in the area of Cape Cod. That was a major glass-making center in the U.S. for a long time. Sandwich glass was beautiful. They had lead glass. It ranged from great-looking glassware at very low prices right up to really serious pieces of art glass. And I don't think the company is still in operation, to be honest with you, although I haven't checked, but I don't think it is. The heyday for sandwich glass was around the middle of the 19th century, say 1850 to 1870. That was really when the popularity of this stuff peaked. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. The glassware that Paul had, and that was like $20 for a set of 8 goblets, thick, heavy, probably a nice high lead content. What a great price that is. And as I mentioned yesterday, I think, because I am looking to add a few goblets to my own glassware, I'm keeping my eyes out. When I see goblets, I'm sitting up and taking notice. But I know what you're thinking, because I get this question in my Etsy shop all the time. Is it safe? We know it's got a lead content. We know lead presents serious health hazards. So what does this mean? Well, in order for glassware to be called lead crystal, it has to have about a 24% lead content. That's pretty high. Can the lead leach out of the glass? Yes, it can. No two ways around it. In general, the perceived wisdom is not enough lead is going to leach into whatever you're drinking in a couple of hours over dinner to make it hazardous, and we take in huge amounts of lead just in our daily life walking down the street from car exhaust. That's not very comforting, is it? Well, here's the thing. There are ways you can deal with lead glass if you want to use it. The simplest and easiest way is grab yourself a bottle of white vinegar. I keep a bottle of Heinz white vinegar in my kitchen cabinet, down in the bottom in the cleaning bucket. This is not something I use for food. And I clean all kinds of glass with it, including, like the coffee maker. Run some vinegar through your coffee maker every once in a while. It will clean the guts out of it. So you get yourself your bottle of glass, or your bottle of vinegar, my apologies, pour it into your lead glass and let it sit overnight. What will happen is any of the stray, loose lead particles are going to leach into the vinegar. And then when you clean it out, that surface layer of the lead crystal will be lead-free. You can use the same vinegar over and over again. If you have like service for 40, you're probably going to want to buy a number of bottles. But if you only have a few bits of lead crystal, dump the bottle into 3 or 4 of them, let it sit, and then take those 3 or 4, dump the vinegar into another 3 or 4, let it sit overnight, and so on. And you can reuse the vinegar to clean other things too. So just keep that in mind. Vinegar is an incredibly useful cleaner. But that is how you can de-lead your lead crystal. You do that, it's perfectly safe to use. I would say even really heavy use, but I would also redo this every year or so. In other words, I wouldn't trust that it's a one-shot deal. I would just periodically soak the glasses in vinegar just to make sure that any stray loose bits of lead were out. Now, excuse me, as I said, I get questions about this all the time through my Etsy shop. People will say, can you eat off this old china? Absolutely. People have been doing it for years. You have a nice antique piece of rose medallion, Nippon, German porcelain. Somebody has been eating off that. That's what it was originally used for. And it wasn't antique to them, so they weren't laying it out just for show. So you can do the same thing with your bottle of vinegar and your plates. Just pour vinegar into the plate. Plates are not flat. Even a flat plate has a bit of a curve to it. It will hold the vinegar in the plate. Let it sit there overnight. Wipe it out. Do the same thing to the next plate, and so on and so forth. That will remove the heavy metals like lead. I don't worry too much about this, but I know some people do. And my caveat is always, don't put the baby's cereal in this, mostly because I think when you're dealing with infants, err on the side of caution. It's not because I think the china is inherently dangerous. It's because I think babies need extra protection from any environmental contaminants. That's all. But yeah, vinegar will solve your problem. So you want to use lead crystal, go right ahead. Get yourself a bottle of vinegar, use it. Just be on the safe side. Caution never hurts. Worst thing that will happen is you will have purchased, what is it? I think the last bottle of vinegar I got cost $1.24. $1.24 in vinegar for my peace of mind, easily worth it. But do not walk away from lead crystal simply because you're afraid of lead poisoning. It's really not a big issue to begin with. Like I say, a little bit of vinegar, you put your mind at ease. So that's what I have for you today. I'm going to finish this up tomorrow because I really did a lot of shopping. Oh, and I'm not done yet because we're not quite at the end of the year yet. So I'm absolutely going back to Bedford just to see what else creeps out of the woodwork at the end of the year, because I'm finding deals left and right. All right. Have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow, and we'll finish this up.